Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our sports show. As you know, we've been previewing live on air and radio for the last couple of months or so of our special rugby documentary, My Life in Rugby, Global Rugby Legends, where we speak to renowned rugby players from the Northern Hemisphere countries, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, England, France and Italy, and the Southern Hemisphere countries, Argentina, South Africa, Australia and New Zealand. And we're delighted so far to have representation from all those countries so far, from Argentina, Italy, France, South Africa, and New Zealand. But we're going back to the Welsh contingent there tonight, and following up from speaking to Rob Howley, Gareth Llewellyn, Craig Quinnell, amongst other David James. We're now delighted to be joined by OBE in terms of Welsh rugby, a phenomenon in terms of not only rugby union for Wales, but also rugby league for Great Britain as well. He played most of his rugby union career as a fly half for Wales between 1985 to 1997, played 37 times, 81 appearances. He was a British and Irish line in the 1988 tour, New Zealand, and he'll be fondly remembered for his 90-metre solo effort try, the one and only Jonathan Davies. And Jonathan, I was looking there, I'm doing my research before I popped on the call with you, and in terms of your childhood career, in terms of that, a sort of a Marion Davies, I believe, was an influential character to you in terms of starting off rugby, and obviously then a childhood hero like Carwyn James as well. Those two guys had a big sort of influence in your career as a youngster starting off.
I think Carwyn was like, a Llanelli coach. I watched Llanelli play a lot because I was only about 3 miles away from the ground. But yet, the school teacher, everyone has a mentor, where they remember where they started off. And I think Marion Davies, with my dad, were the key influences, because he was the one when he came to teach at the school. He brought discipline, and we trained together as a seven-a-side. We played 15s every Friday in the afternoon in school. So that's where we developed our skills for the game.
And growing up in the region of Wales that you grew up in, Jonathan, was it very rugby orientated? Was rugby the sort of main sport that was played in sort of schools, or did you in a time was Welsh soccer prominent around, or was that more prominent around the central sort of areas in Wales, or was it a split between multiple sports, or were you good at track and field athletes? Were you a swimmer? Were you cross country runner? Did you play a bit of basketball, anything like that?
I played football. I played rugby. I played cricket in the summer, and then we're close to the beach, so we used to go and run a bit on the dunes and having a bit of a swim. But no, I think it was mainly cricket, soccer, or rugby we played. Depends on the seasons, but rugby was the main sport, especially when you grow up near Llanelli. Where Llanelli were, I was at the All Blacks when a game where Llanelli beat them, but also. Wales were going well in the 70s as well, so you kind of veered towards rugby.
You sort of veered towards rugby. And Jonathan, your professional career was mainly during the amateur career of professional sort of rugby throughout your career. So obviously growing up in a family, your probably father and mother were sort of preaching to you the importance of education and school and and getting a real qualified full-time job. And what area did Jonathan Davies see himself going down the route? Was it an apprenticeship? Was it a plumber? Was it a college businessman? Or what was the ambition for you?
That's what it was, Jim. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was, he had cancer when I was 12. Didn't see much of him then. And he passed away when I was 14. So my mum struggled, in work. She's looking after me and my sister. So I lost a little bit of discipline, and I would like to have stayed in school a bit longer, but I left to become an apprentice painter and decorator. But then from there, I went into I used rugby as a vehicle, just to meet some employers and sponsors. So I went as a financial advisor, working in open cast. Then I was a contracts manager. So more like a salesman, I suppose I turned into, but. I would have liked to have gone, maybe in hindsight, stuck in school and gone to university.
And Jonathan, in terms of your career, in terms of late early 80s in terms of, was it always fly half, or you grew up playing rugby union as a youngster? Was it always that fly half position, or were you a bit of a centre, full back, a bit of wing? Were you everything in terms of the backs? And did you ever venture up to the forwards at one stage, or were you always told to go back to the backs and stay back there?
Never ventured to the forwards. Never, ever. I didn't even venture to number 9. So I just, I stayed, I played mainly out of half. But then, you know, I think it's good for my education that when I was playing for Llanelli, we had such a good backline that if someone dropped out, then I'd fill in and play full back maybe, you know. So, because if you play out of half then, you know, you can understand the positional play of the full back and where you would be and where he should be. So I played full back and out of half, but primarily I played out of half.
And was it a sort of a rapid rise to you when you were like 18 or 19? Were you on the sort of fringes of the Welsh sort of national team at a very sort of young age in terms of where you were sort of brought to life? Did you have to wait too long before the Wales senior team came knocking?
Yeah, I never played for Wales at any age group. Because, you know, coming from an area where maybe we didn't have the strongest forwards, so as a standoff, and you don't have the opportunity to, you know, to show your skills. So, but what I did then, I was a good trainer. I always trained hard, and I enjoyed my training, enjoyed my fitness, and then you know, I just kept on. I trained a lot with Phil Bennett down in the track in the track. So what I did then was, Nice gave me a call. And then Phil Bennett had rung them, and then from playing for my little village, playing standard for my village, I was then thrust into first class rugby, played for Nice. And then 30 games later, I'm playing for Wales. That's how, you know, that's how rapid it was.
And what was your sort of memories of your debut for Wales in terms of the build-up? Was there an awful lot of nervous anticipation for you? And in terms of knowing your opposition and knowing the guys that you were lying out, did you start to feel comfortable with your teammates, or did you feel a bit in awe of one or two of them?
I think because I played against them at that level, I wasn't really in awe of anyone. I was just very nervous of the occasion more than anything. I played with a great scrum half called Terry Holmes, who was absolutely an amazing player, maybe the best Welsh player I ever played with. And I just think that, you know, he was calm as a captain and just offered a lot of confidence and advice. But obviously, you know, your nerves get you because, you know, you're thrust from obscurity and then 30 games later you're playing for Wales after first class rugby, and then to be thrust into that arena, you know, and you know it's like with the media and everything, it's just a different preparation that particular week, you know, mentally and physically. You know, it's very demanding. So and it is very difficult to manage if it's your first time. But then, you know, you get used to it, and experience, you know, it comes with it then.
I remember speaking to Rob only recently, and he talked to me, he was always a tactical nous in terms of a scrum half, and always had that tactical mind about him. But in terms of the 80s, in terms of the decade you grew up playing for Wales, in terms of coming up against the likes of Philippe Sella, Philippe Saint-Andre, and players of that caliber, did you always feel that were you a student of the game in terms of, did you always like to study types of, or was it just a matter, look, it's a game, it's a team before me, let's go out, play these, what will be, at the end of the game, park it and move on? Or were you a constant sort of a thinker leading up to those type of games in terms of the opposition and the quality you will come across?
It's very different in those days, you know. I don't think the game has changed that much, you know, on the field. The same principles, you know, are there when we were there. You know, you got to go forward. The quicker the ball, you know, the better the attacking opportunities. You know, maybe the analysis and the preparation and the training is a lot different now. But yeah, I studied my opposite numbers. You know, I knew their weaknesses. I watched them. I kind of knew I was quicker than most standoffs of guys I played against. So I tried to isolate me in a one-on-one situation with them. But I was lucky, you know, to play in that era when you come up against the likes of, you know, Blanco and Sella. You know, I caught Jerry Guscott, you know, and then was the great New Zealand Rory, and then you play against you know, Campese. You play against your John Kerwins, you know, and so it's Michael Liners. So, and also I was very fortunate. I played against Tony Ward once, and then I also played. For me, John Rutherford from Scotland was a very good player. So, I wasn't scared of any of them, and I learned a lot from those individuals I played against. I watched them a lot. So, and I remember playing in the sevens in Sydney. It was only my first kind of real introduction into seven-a-side and international rugby in '85, and I everywhere I went on the pitch, Serge Blanco marked me playing for France. So I thought that was a nice sign of respect.
And I suppose, Jonathan, in terms of Wales in that sort of period, sort of the late 80s, moving on to the 90s, and we came across a period, a time where it was sort of English and sort of French dominance, and maybe Scotland maybe had one or two sort of really good teams around that era that maybe came and go with your Gavin and your Scott Hastings and your Craig Chalmers and player like that might have upset England or France the odd occasion. But it almost felt around that era of the Five Nations that it was always Wales, Scotland and Ireland battling it out for third place, and France and England would be the main canters. Did you always feel at the time that going into the tournaments that if you were upset one of them, it was a great success? But do you ever feel going into sort of Six Nations that you realistically could take down both of them in the same tournament?
I always think that France were the best side in the Northern Hemisphere at that side. Through the 80s, they had great players, and they had a very formidable side. They went to the World Cup in '87. They were a very, very talented group of boys. So I felt that they were the best side. So we could beat each other. I beat England in Twickenham. I beat them in Cardiff. So I didn't. I lost to England in Twickenham. I didn't beat Scotland. In Scotland, but I didn't lose them in Cardiff. I didn't beat Ireland in Cardiff, but I beat them in Dublin. So it was a lot of them, mix and match, and anyone could beat each other. And there was no, apart from France, maybe, So, but then in building up, a lot of us went rugby league then in '89, and I do feel if we would have stayed together in that period, I think Wales, we would have been a threat in '91 to that World Cup. I honestly do, because we had a lot of good players then. But unfortunately, as it does happen in Welsh rugby, they didn't support a lot of the players, so a lot of the players went north.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Gareth Llewellyn, and he said it was soul crushing to see so many of you go at the one sort of time in terms of Wales, in terms of that period in the 90s, that it was maybe at least 10 or 11 guys that were being probably starters in the national team that were sort of gone. But was it a hard decision for you making that? Was it you were sort of, did you have to really think long and hard about it, making that switch to rugby league, or was rugby league the opportunity with Great Britain? Was it a chance to chase honours, a chance to chase successes and trophies that you wanted to get those trophies in your cabinet?
It was both, because when you're a player, yes, obviously know it's finances. But irrespective of your finances, you want to win things. You want to be in finals. You want to be in championships. The more successful you are, the more games you play. So ultimately, what you do on the pitch is the big point. Because if you do well on the pitch, success will follow that off it. I believe so. It was the toughest decision I ever had to make, because I was really happy in playing for Llanelli. We were a good side. I think that side would have dominated British rugby at that particular time for the next few years, which have been good for Wales, leading up to the '91 World Cup. But, again, coming from, humble background, losing my father, I'm not going to university. Security was kind of quite important to me as well. And having been to New Zealand and knowing that we weren't on the same level playing field as them, they were kind of looked after by sponsors and their employees were reimbursed. So I just felt that we wouldn't, unless we were given the same opportunities, we wouldn't compete with them. And I think that I was right, because England didn't, on Northern Hemisphere didn't win the World Cup till 2003. So, and I'd retired by then. So I went, to cash on with my skills, but also the important decision for me was going to a good side, because if you go to a poor side where things aren't going well, they think, oh, we got the superstar here. You just, you try and get the result for us. When I went to Widnes, my main priority was breaking into that Widnes side first, because they had all international players. And if I broke into that side, that would be the platform for me to gain international honours and then to win competitions with Widnes.
I suppose, Jonathan, I just want to touch back on the New Zealand tour, the Lions tour 1988. It's a prominent moment for any sort of player, sort of club player. And that try in particular, is that probably still the highlight for you, one of those top 5 moments in your sort of career? And how special is it for players to be a sort of Lion? Because it comes every 4-year, 5-year sort of cycle. If you miss the both of it.
Yeah, that was, I didn't play for the Lions, and maybe that's a regret I had. That I played for Wales against New Zealand. And
apologies, yeah.
That's all right. A lot of people think I played, which is nice. People I was good enough to play. No, that was against New Zealand, and yeah, that was a great try. Just go in Eden Park and run in from 60 meters. That's what dreams are made of. Yes, up there, one of my best tries. Maybe one against Scotland in Cardiff Arms Park is up there as well. John Webb tapped me from behind once in Twickenham. That would have been a good try. Or I'd made a couple of breaks against Scotland. But no, it's it is what it is, and I do regret that I didn't go on a Lions tour. That's the only thing I do regret, that maybe have stayed.
Just going to ask you that question. So that was going to be my follow lead on question. So it is a sort of regret for you in terms of that. And if the opportunity had come under your time when playing rugby league, if one of the Rugby Lions tour manager said, listen, if you come back playing rugby union for 5 to 6 months here, there could be a possibility I have your eye out to try for your Lions, would you have jumped away from it?
I was like 6 years older then, and I there's a lot of mileage on the clock. I was going to be slower, so I wouldn't have been the same threat that I would have been. I missed apartheid in mid-80s. I missed out to South Africa. Then I went to rugby league in 89, so I missed out the 89. I missed out the 93, but then I came back then, and I was asked if I was interested in going in 97, but unfortunately my wife was very, very ill, and Ian McGeechan stuck with his Northampton players, so I missed that as well. So yeah, it would have. I think I was a good candidate for the Lions. I enjoyed all. The whole ethos of the Lions. I think it's a great club to be involved in, but. I have no regrets from my rugby league career. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I played for Great Britain. I went to New Zealand and won a test series down there. Scored a try in Wembley against the Australians, which a lot of people remind me of all the time. And I won, to go from one sport to the other sport and to captain Great Britain, to have player of the year on 2 occasions, is... I was very, very proud of that, because everyone thought I would fail at rugby league, and then I had 2 spells in Australia in the NRL, in the Australian Rugby League, which I think is the best competition in the world.
And Jonathan, I'm just going to touch on your times playing Ireland and your memories. Obviously, you played in the fly half position for Wales. Any memories of your time coming up against Eric Elwood, where you've crossed Eric a few times playing in the Irish jersey?
I tell you who I played against was Paul Dean.
Okay.
So, I played against Paul Dean. I played against Tony Ward in a friendly match. I bumped into Ollie Campbell last week. I was in Dublin speaking at the old Belvedere, so it was nice to catch up with Ollie. So yeah, I remember all those playing. But yeah, we had some great competition, great matches. Dino and myself. Dino was quick, and he went on the Lions tour in '89 when I went north. So, I remember, great battles with Philip Matthews. I'm trying to think who the other wing forward was. I can't remember his name now. Nigel Carr. Carr was hit with a car bomb and a shrapnel. So, but they were great guys. I enjoyed playing against them. I had Donald Lenihan. Then you had Willie Anderson. I'm still friendly with. Michael Keenan. I'm still friendly with Hugo McNeil. So. Yeah, we had some good times against the Irish. I went on an Irish Wolfhounds to Hong Kong on the Sevens, which was a very different experience, I might add, but an enjoyable one. And I have fond memories of playing against Ireland and spending some great nights in Dublin. Dublin's one of my favourite cities.
And I suppose, Jonathan, in terms of your career overall, in terms of it wasn't sort of dogged with injuries or anything like that, were you lucky to avoid some major injuries or any sort of scares for you that at the time could have been an awful lot worse?
Yeah, I tore my cruciate ligaments first season for Neath, so I didn't play for 14 months. So, and the surgeon said, if I don't have the operation, I'll never play rugby again. So that was at the start of my career. So I tried to look after myself, and I conditioned very, very well. When I went rugby league, no, I broke my
Any
wrist.
concussions? Any problems with concussions?
I'm not sure. I might have had a bang, with the medical kind of facilities that they have now, and the tests that they have. I might have been concussed. Who knows? I had a few bangs on the head, not too many. I tried to ride a lot of tackles, to be honest. That was I never looked for contact. For me, rugby was a game about space and finding space, and then for your support players to come to you, So I didn't look for heavy contact. It happens sometimes, but I tried to ride the big tackles, and I was very lucky to avoid, serious head concussions.
And Jonathan Davies, lastly, finally, for me, it's you. If you were to look in the player that's standing in the mirror as a 25, 26-year-old in his pomp, in terms of these attributes and what he brought maybe to the Wales jersey and the Great Britain jersey every time he put it on, what would you say were his main sort of go-to skills, what he sort of brought to a team?
I think I was, I was quite quick, and I loved, taking people on one-on-one. I really relished that. And I think what you do is, when you play, you don't think of it then, but you create memories. It's an entertainment sport, and you got to create moments. So when I had the ball, hopefully people got up off their seats, and I think that's the case. I have fond memories. Lucky there's YouTube now, and the web, so you can see the memories you created. But when I go places, a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, I was at that game when you scored that try," or when you hit that drop goal, or when you made that break. So, it's for people to remember things that you did on the field. And I've been retired since '97. It must have made a bit of an impact on them.
And for you, Jonathan, lastly, in your sort of era, who would you think was the greatest player across both sports, rugby league and rugby union, the stand-up player?
That's a very difficult one. I played against so many great players. Even people like Danny Gerber, who played for South Africa, right? Played against him in the Sevens tournament. He was an unbelievable player. Campisi was a special player. Sella, was a special player. Timmy Horan was a special player. Then I had the, I'm not sure it was a pleasure, but you play against people like Zin Zambrook, and then Michael Jones, who transformed back row play in New Zealand. They say, they're held in such admiration, these players, that I was very fortunate. And if you look at rugby league, you had Andrew Johns, you had Darren Lockyer, you had Mal Meninga, then you had Ellery Hanley, and even the great the Irish coach at the moment, Andy Farrell, was a very, very special player. So I was very fortunate to play against world class players in both codes, and those players would have been great players in any era. That's the fact. They would have adapted and been great in any era.
Jonathan, I'm sure they would pass the compliment straight back at you as well. Jonathan Davies, thanks for reliving your moments. This is your life in rugby, 1985 to 1987. Played 37 times for Wales, 81 points. Always remember for his 90-metre try against New Zealand. Played obviously rugby league for Great Britain on numerous occasions as well. He played for Wales, most prominently a fly half in rugby league. He played centre, full back, on the wing as well. Jonathan Davies, thanks for sharing your story today. Many more to come, and please God, in the near future, speak to you again sometime soon.
Okay, Jim. All the best, mate.